Hello, my name is Dr. Joseph Marra, and I'm going to give a brief bio of myself. This video is being produced in order to inform you a little bit more about myself and the journey that brought me to this point. And because I have some specific details of my journey that I want to incorporate into this video bio, I'm going to use some notes now and again. So please forgive me for referring to these notes. And we will start. Okay, so to begin, I was born and raised a Roman Catholic and have always questioned the rules and laws of this world, including the various religions throughout the world. It never made any sense to me. And for instance, a loving God could damn his children to hell if we did not conform to his will or way. And to give an example of this, if there's a person, especially a child that's born on the other side of the planet into a different religion, they may go to hell or purgatory if they're not born into the correct religion. And this never made sense to me. And that's just to give one example. And this led me to research and to ask some difficult questions to those who were in so-called positions of power or knowledge. However, these individuals simply could not answer the questions, at least not to my satisfaction. So I therefore had to do my own research and find my own answers, or put together all the pieces to the puzzle that we call life. I put myself through school, learning via traditional education and traditional medicine, first obtaining my associate degree in science with a registered nurse degree, then to a bachelor's of science with an RN to BSN. And during this time, I had a near-death experience, and I was traveling around the sharp turn in the middle of the winter months in central Pennsylvania, and I kind of slid off the road, and I ran into a solid block wall, a garage wall, and which I believe altered my DNA and kind of catapulted me into the direction I was destined for. So that was very influential and instrumental in myself continuing on this journey, this spiritual journey, I would say. So after completing my BSN, I began taking classes towards a master's in science with a family nurse practitioner degree. And after graduating, I began working for an MD, but knew right away that I wanted to simply be independent and have my own practice. So after obtaining some experience for approximately 3 years, I went on my own and opened an urgent care center, which eventually turned into 3 separate locations and continued to grow and be prosperous. At that point, I decided to go on for my DNP, or a doctorate of nursing practice, and all of my degrees were in science, and none of these degrees really explained the parts of spirituality that I knew existed and experienced personally. And as I continued my education for my doctorate, I also continued to practice family medicine at my urgent care centers. I also moonlighted at a drug and alcohol detox and rehab center. And with all of the people I've met over the years and treated, and all of the years of education I underwent, the deeper questions that I had were never really answered. In fact, once I started practicing medicine, more and more questions arose. And you must realize that in a small town, sometimes the docs or practitioners of healthcare act as marriage counselors and mental health providers. And I got to tell you that sometimes I felt like a priest taking confessions. So it was rather interesting, to say the least. Many times individuals came in with very special gifts that have been misdiagnosed as things like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And this was, through prior physicians. And within my practice, I mean, you come across a lot of various disciplines and people from all walks of life. I mean, I've had patients that worked in the CIA, the FBI, underground bases, which of course are not supposed to exist. Um, those who have had near-death experiences, those who have had psychic gifts, soldiers that would come back from Iraq or Afghanistan and tell a very different story than what had been portrayed on mainstream media. So, you know, once I started researching and seeing for myself that many of the ancient modalities had validity, coupled with the fact that research that is said to be evidence-based medicine and following the scientific method with reproducible studies were actually, in my opinion, to the contrary. Um, and this is partially due to the funding of the research. And in fact, those who fund the studies and who are completing them are oftentimes the pharmaceutical companies themselves that happen to have ties to oil companies. Uh, these are billionaires that want to continue being billionaires. And this all sounds like conspiracy, but if you follow the paper trail, you'll see for yourself. I mean, do the research. Get online and uh, do the research for yourself, and you'll see. Um, Now, even though this is to be focused on my bio, I feel that it is important and relevant to quantify, in my perspective, why the world is the way it is, and therefore why I believe what I believe. And here's just a very brief explanation of why practitioners may practice the way they do. And this is just brief. The standards of care in medicine, they're set by organizations such as the AMA and insurance companies such as Medicare. And they set the rate of pay and they decide what they will and will not pay for. And if you don't do this, you're at risk of losing your license, your practice, and even your home. I mean, many have invested their money and their lives to this career that, you know, have taken many years to accomplish. And, they've taken out many loans to support themselves until they complete their education. At this point, they're pretty much slaves to the system, and they don't even know it in many cases. Their families rely on them for the income that they need to generate in order to pay the bills, for their education and their homes and their business. And many of the patients rely on them for staying in business. So, even though they're practicing medicine, and even though they wake up or remember who they are, or who we are as humanity, as far as spiritual beings, um, they are in fear of litigation, ridicule by their colleagues, and pressure from the community in which they live in or work in. And many people wonder why the cost of healthcare is out of control, at least in this country. Some of this is due to doctors, practitioners practicing in a save your butt mentality. And many cases, the physician may not truly feel the patient needs a particular test or study, but they order it anyway just to be safe. Or the insurance companies require, say, an x-ray first before they'll approve something like an MRI, in which case x-rays, they look at bone or hard dense tissue, whereas the MRI will show the soft tissue, and it's more specific for that. And this is just a very brief rationale for why the art of practicing medicine is practiced the way it is today. Okay, so back to me. As I continued to practice and research, many influential people came into my life to help me with what I was looking for, which was the truth. And I thought that if I looked hard enough and talked to the right people, I could figure all this out and what was really going on in the world, and then tell everybody. It turns out I found what I was looking for. However, I also found that there's a common thread amongst humanity in that we are all connected to this consciousness field that surrounds this planet. but we also have our own individual truth. And this is dependent upon your life's experience, the level of soul growth that you're currently at, and many other variables, which I hope to discuss over the coming months here at ATW. So, through all this, I decided to experience Reiki and go to psychics and travel the country to explore the astral realm, which I feel is like the ghostly realm, the angelic realm, and then the ET phenomenon. So I actually had a woman come into my life here a few years back, and I actually hired her for my urgent care center in central Pennsylvania. And she was hired to use hypnotism and complementary modalities for healing. And it turned out that she was very sensitive, intuitive, psychic energy healer, and could do what we call deep channeling. And she didn't realize that she could do this. She would spontaneously channel just prior to meeting me. And we researched this phenomenon uh, every day at lunchtime, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, and for several years. And the more we explored, the more answers we obtained. And I think it's important to add that the channeling, when it starts out, until you get used to it, until you become a higher vibration, if you will. There can be tricksters that come in and people that are astral realm individuals that don't have your greatest good in mind. And so it's always good to have a person with you if you are channeling. And actually, I think anybody can do this. It's a phenomenon, at least in the three-dimensional realm, we view it as a phenomenon. But really, I think any human being on the planet at this time has that potential. So, I studied and became a Reiki master and a hypnotherapist and offered this complementary treatment to my patients at the urgent care center. I would practice traditional medicine and do the studies and diagnostic uh, tests according to the standard of care. But when it came to the treatment, I would then offer the patient a choice. And again, it should always be the patient's choice. And I offered this choice of traditional treatment along with complementary modalities such as hypnotherapy and Reiki or energy healing. And the results were very amazing, to say the least. I had patients that believed in current medical model, and they wanted to be treated accordingly, and I respected that. But I actually had many more patients who were looking for an alternative to standard of care, and they were looking for a more natural approach. So after I found all this information that I found out, and all the research, and all the patients that I saw, including all the people from different walks of life on all over the world, I needed a platform to express myself and to reach more people, basically. So I created a radio talk show and to interview those who knew a specific portion of the truth or had a piece of the puzzle that I was attempting to put together for myself and humanity. So I created a radio talk show called Universal Talk. And this allowed me to put what I have learned into a more cohesive, more organized, and more understandable collection of information so that those listening could form their own opinion once they received the truth from each discipline. And these guests were from all walks of life, all different parts of the planet, and from all different career paths. And as we took the pieces and put the puzzle together, we individually and collectively could see a more complete picture of what was really going on here. And the website for that is www.universaltalk.info. And there's archived information there. It's still up, and if anybody wants to look at it or continue with that type of exploration, it's there. It's free, and I would suggest doing the research for yourself. So, where am I today? I've made some personal changes with my life and lifestyle of living. I've closed the urgent care centers down and sold the buildings and moved from central PA to New Mexico, and I created a new website. It's a guiding light, lite.com, and this provides meditation CDs, personalized sessions, intuitive readings, and angel card readings, to name a few. And I've been asked to speak at many conferences, such as the Free Your Mind conference in Philadelphia, which you could Google that. I believe it's on YouTube as well. Many radio shows, such as Late Night in the Midlands, have upcoming events and speaking engagements, and tend to teach what I know here at ATW, and maybe bring my Universal Talk radio show to ATW as well. I continue to receive requests for me to do interviews on my radio show and requests to be interviewed, so we'll see how that all plays out. And that is about as short of a bio as I could make it. Sorry for the long-windedness. And I look forward to seeing you in the future for future videos and maybe even in the classroom at ATW. Till next time, I'm Dr. Joseph Marra with a guiding light and in cooperation with ATW for changing this world to a better place for all involved. And sending you all love,